About 6 months ago, I was handed a Bloomberg interview for a new grad role on a silver platter. And guess what? I made a complete absolute fool of myself. And I still got the job. No, of course I got rejected. Even though I didn't get the job, I learned from my mistakes, and I hope that my experiences can help you guys on what you absolutely by force must not do for technical interviews and technical interview prep. Now, the first question we should try to answer is, how on God's green earth did I get an interview with Bloomberg even though they didn't open applications to the public until much later in the year? Well, the simple answer is I really don't know. I honestly don't know how I caught the eye of the recruiter there, but I guess it was just lucky. Bloomberg is a big company, so they probably just reached out to many applicants. So I don't even know if I have to feel special. But the way it started was not like any other application I've personally experienced before. A recruiter reached out to me at the beginning of the summer through LinkedIn, enrolled me in the Bloomberg Accelerator Summer School, BASE for short, where I learned how Bloomberg conducts interviews and a few things about interview prep. I scheduled 3 mock interviews with engineers and hiring managers, and when applications were open around September, they gave me a special link to apply. Again, I was just incredibly lucky. Now, if you don't know how the Bloomberg software engineering process goes, it usually goes something like this. The first step is the initial application, so you just fill out an online form and send in your resume and all that good stuff. There is no online assessment for Bloomberg, so you just go straight to the on-site interviews, and these usually consist of multiple interviews. It could be about 2 to 3 coding interviews, a technical chat with an engineer, and an HR interview, which is kind of like the behavioral interview. And if you pass all that, you will be made an offer. Pretty sweet, right? Well, I did wish it was that simple. The interview process really depends on the company and the interviewers you meet. Some people have it really easy, and some people have it extremely hard. It all just depends. I think for Bloomberg, if you don't do well on any stage, you're not proceeded to the next stage, so you know pretty quickly if you're in a good spot or not. After the base program and my summer was over, I got an email from Bloomberg HR. The email I got was for the first interview, and I think everyone who applied through a recruiter received this, so it was nothing special. In my case, I knew since the beginning of the summer that I was gonna get to the interview stage. So I had about 4 months to prepare for the interview, which was gonna happen during the fall semester. And guess what I did? As any sensible person who was serious about getting a job before graduating, I spent every single day grinding lead code during and after the base program, and I did about 300 plus lead code problems before my interview. No, I didn't do any of that. I postponed everything. I told myself I'll just throw when the time is near, and which in my laziest case was about 2 weeks to the interview. In case some of you were wondering, did my resume matter in this case? Honestly, I really doubt. I had a pretty okay resume, I should say. Didn't really have big name internships. I only had about 3 professional experiences from not so big names. Although I would point out that the work I did in those companies were actually big enough, so I guess that really counted. I didn't really have any huge projects. I just had the Harry Potter Invisibility Cloak project I did with OpenCV and my personal website, and I think that was it. Nothing was really unique, and I didn't stand out too much. You could say that maybe my school, Tufts University, probably helped quite a bit because it seemed to be a target school for Bloomberg recruiting. And maybe being a minority also helped me, I don't know, hot take maybe. So back to the story. After my application was processed, I set up the time for the interview, which was in about 2 weeks. And it was going to be a Monday. Well, I'd had 4 months to prepare initially and I did nothing. So now I just had 2 weeks. So guess what? I shifted into turbo mode, grinded lead code for days and nights, no rest. I walked around campus with cracking the coding interview in hand and only spoke Python code. And of course I'm being dramatic here, but I did none of that. I went on with my life as if nothing big was happening. And you can call it cockiness or arrogance, but honestly, I guess I just didn't think the interview was gonna be that hard. So I didn't need to prepare for it at all. I had done 3 mock interviews initially with Bloomberg interviewers during the summer, and the feedback from those interviews was that if this were the actual interview, I would have passed it. So maybe I guess that contributed a ton to my cockiness. Well, Monday arrived and my interviewer didn't show up because he had a family emergency, so I had to reschedule to Friday morning of that same week. I think for Bloomberg, I did a total of about 20 hours of prep and maybe just about 15 lead code problems in total. So Friday arrived quickly and it was time for the interview. The interview was done online over HackerRank with their inbuilt Zoom feature. The interviewer started by introducing himself and asked me about my experience and the language I was going to use for the interview. He went over the basic steps for the interview, like he's going to introduce himself, I'll introduce myself. He gave me the question. The question was pretty vague initially and I couldn't make sense of it. And that's when things began to go really south. You see, as part of my preparation, I'd only studied Bloomberg likely questions and just a few of them for that matter. I didn't go over DSAs, neither did I learn patterns and all that good stuff. So when the interviewer asked a question and I realized it was within and none of the things I'd learned in the past, I totally fumbled. And every single rational thought just left my head. I did all the stupid things you can think of not to do in a technical interview. I didn't ask for clarifying questions in order to fully understand the problem, and then I jumped straight into coding, even though the interviewer kept hinting that we might have to rethink the problem more and really try to understand the solution better. I fumbled in my explanation, and honestly, I couldn't even solve the problem. This question I have never ever seen before on LeetCode, and apparently it was a LeetCode hard problem. And honestly, since I ever got asked that question, I've never seen it again. But seriously, why ask LeetCode hard problems for a new grad interview? Like, really? Would I have been able to solve it if it was an easy or medium problem? Most likely, but I can't say that for sure because I really didn't prepare at all. And it was just an unlucky day and an unlucky interview. Well, the interview ended and I just knew that was it. There was no way I was getting past this first stage. After this, I was really disappointed in myself. In fact, I recorded a YouTube video, which is currently unlisted, about how I messed up the easiest opportunity to get out of the job search process as badly as I did. But a few business days later, I got an email from Bloomberg HR saying, "Congratulations, you have made it past the stage and would like to extend a full-time offer to you with $300K in total compensation." And of course, I'm kidding. I got a rejection letter, obviously. Wouldn't it be crazy if it was actually a happy ending? You know, crazy, right? Well, they say hindsight is 20/20, so I guess getting rejected after the first stage was a good thing, because even if I did move on, I'd have had to do more interviews before getting hired. And with a mindset and attitude like mine, getting an offer would have just reinforced the wrong things in my life and made it extremely hard for me to succeed as a developer in tech. Bloomberg says they actually care about problem-solving ability and critical thinking, and so do many other companies. At the end of it all, it's still a coding challenge, and if you can't code, you probably won't pass. I'm sure people have passed without completing the code, so there are those cases. But honestly, I think you're much better off coding the solution than not. After this interview, even though it was a complete embarrassment, I definitely learned a lot. I learned how to approach an interview by planning. I learned that I needed to put in the effort to understand concepts and not just memorize code. I learned to grind LeetCode. I learned to manage my time during interviews. I learned what I should do in a situation where I was presented with something I knew I had zero clue about. My only other interview I had for this recruiting season was with Meta. And you know how the story goes, so you could say that I did apply all the lessons I learned from Bloomberg really well. So here's my final advice for you guys. Number 1, don't be cocky. Take your time to prepare. Number 2, don't panic in the interview. It's really a simple formula, like an act. And when you have the act nailed down, it's just easy to give the greatest performance during any technical interview. Number 3, try to get a working solution during the interview. The interviewers want to see how you write code. That said, if you're interested in learning how I actually apply these lessons to get my job at Meta, then watch this video next. I'll see you on that side. Peace.